Hey everyone, it's Frank from L4PQ and today I bring you an SSR Selector flowchart. I still see this question pop up every so often, so that's why I decided to make a more detailed guide about it, and hopefully it will help you decide on what you want to pick in your SSR selection box. Before we get started, if you want this flowchart or simply ask questions or contact us, you can click on the Discord link down in the description. Also, if you want any more info on Tower of Fantasy, simply go to toweroffantasy.info. I will not be providing any additional information on the screen so you can see the flowchart, but you can go to that site for more info. Okay, so what to get in your SSR selection box? Well, let's start from the beginning. First off, if you don't have a Shieldbreak, then I recommend King. King has an incredibly high shatter to break shields, and really strong damage over time with his first star dupe after he shatters shields. Not to mention, he already has damage over time with his flame element passive. His attacks feel very smooth and faster paced than the other shield breakers, which also makes him a solid pick. Now, if you don't want King, you can get Meryl for PvP to fill as a tank role or for the heals with the 1-star dupe. But Meryl also, as well as Huma, aren't as good as King because they don't really have damage attacks that happen after shield breaking and has more stuff aimed for defensive effects. So what if you have a shield break but don't have a DPS? Well, Samir is probably the only choice here. She does pretty good damage while being in the air with her aerial. Also, most ground attacks won't touch her and has nice charge rate as well. She has a trait that boosts her damage if she takes no damage, and she's pretty easy to use, making her the top DPS in the selector. So the only one I would actually consider using if you really like to challenge yourself, or if you already have him to 2 stars, is Crow. Crow can actually do pretty insane damage, but needs the backstab crit rate from his 1-star and needs his 3-star for the extra damage and consistency to contend with Samir, or potentially even higher damage than her. To be honest though, if you're playing solo, you're going to have a hard time hitting the back because most of the time mobs will be aggroed and looking at you facing front. Now that means that it's not that you can't go around the back, it just takes more work. And he's only good with his jetpack trick where you fly with it and then do a downward aerial attack towards their back. So places where you can't do that trick will make him fall off in terms of damage. What if you have both of them but you don't have a support? Then Tsubasa is your choice. She has decent damage with her dash attack and skill, despite being a sub DPS. She's viable to become a main DPS once Frost Resonance is out, and at 1-star, she has a dash attack that gives a decent damage buff. It's much stronger at 6 stars. She is the only long-term viable SSR in the standard selector because of her 6-star buff, and is a less conditional SSR that boosts overall damage, so she can fit into almost any type of team composition. There really isn't anyone that can replace her kit in the selector, but if you want heals instead, then you can get Coco. Being the only real healer in the selector, since Zero needs a 1-star dupe to heal, she can also become a strong support with extra healing from her 1-star and a team buff with her 3-star dupe. The problem is if you decide to invest into her, she will fall off as time goes by because the future ice elements or Lin will just replace her slot. So those investments might become a waste. For Zero, as I mentioned earlier, he needs 1-star to actually heal, which is actually a huge investment in itself. But also he doesn't do that much damage. He's more of a utility SSR, and at very late stages of Bicon Phantasm is when he starts to shine a bit. I personally never tested him during late game, but this is why I heard from CN veterans that played longer than me. Okay, so there is one SSR that can fill 2 roles at the moment if she wanted to, and that's Shiro. Even though she does sound great, like having a 1-star team buff with her skill and a decent shatter, her kit is not great for endgame. Things like 6-star where she grants 100% crit chance, but at late game it won't be needed. Also, higher Bygone Phantasms and other content, there's going to be a lot of mobs that don't really have a shield anymore, and she needs to proc shields to reset her 3-star passive, or just make her 1-star passive relevant. Her discharge skill also isn't that great either versus the other choices you have in your weapon set. The only time I feel like she has potential to be decent is when Claudia comes out. So if you somehow have her at 2-star dupes and you're waiting for Claudia, then you can consider picking her up. Again, the late game stuff with Shiro is something I heard from CN veterans, so I can only assume things like crit not being needed is either crit falls off late game or everyone already builds crit chance so they don't need her buff, which becomes a wasted investment. Well, what if you have all three? Then it's time for some dupes. You can either go King for the 1-star dot damage, or if you decide to go Meryl, you can get her to 1-star for the heals, but not as needed. If you don't want to dupe King at all because of irrelevancy, then going for Tsubasa might be the pick here for long term. If you have Tsubasa, she is probably the safest using duplicates if you have nothing else. King falls off as time goes on, but with things being time gated, he is still very strong for progression. So it wouldn't be that bad to dupe him if you want an easier time progressing through various content. I would only dupe Nemesis if I already have King to 1-star, or decided to go for Nemesis with Bolt Element being your main team for a long time. The other SSRs I mentioned also need a certain amount of dupes to be viable, so if you really want to invest into them, I suggest only going for the targeted star dupes that I mentioned previously or gives them a unique passive. Let's say you don't want dupes, but you want strong SSRs that are good in PvP. Although I don't know much about PvP, since I didn't play a lot of it in China, I heard various late game CN veterans talking about it, and also Gateoo, a CN Day 2 whale, talk about it on his stream. You can go check him out on Twitch if you have more questions about PvP, or if he decides to bring out an in-depth guide or tier list, you can check out his YouTube. With that being said, I will give you a brief explanation on each SSR and why they are good in this current PvP meta. The reason why Coco Ritter and Zero are considered the best in PvP from standard is because Coco and Zero both have infinite range, can heal, Zero has CC knockbacks, and Coco has immunity that prevents your own shields from being damaged. These two, along with Nemesis, who can basically kite you while flying around airborne, putting down electrodes to do damage and can also heal, will define the stall meta PvP for a while. Behind these three SSRs are Huma and Meryl. These two are more straightforward because of their strong utilities and crowd control. Meryl basically has CC immunity on her spin and skill, while also being able to put up a shield and reduce their speed, dodge, and jump. Huma has a strong AoE damage when she switches to her weapon or use her skill. She also has damage reduction and some CC while using her holding normal attacks. Overall, both are solid in the current PvP meta and best in standard after the other three at the moment. Alright, so going back up the flowchart, we got healers and defensive roles. Healers, like I said before, you want to grab Coco if you don't have her. If you do, then you can use Pepper if you want to save resources and aren't planning to invest too much into healer roles, or you can try your hand at Zero. But keep in mind, you do need his 1-star dupe for the heals. Also, if you have Nemesis, you can use her and replace whoever you want. You can even use 3 of them for full support, but it might be better to take a Shieldbreaker instead. The main reason why is because not only do you want to heal, you want to help allies bring down shields on bosses, so they don't unleash their ultimate attack. And if they don't unleash it, that will make your whole life easier as a healer. For defense roles, it's pretty straightforward. If you have either Meryl or Huma, then go for the other, or just use NA for the defense resonance. Your third slot should be someone that's a strong damage buffer like Tsubasa, which can help you take down shields faster while doing decent damage. Defense roles in general isn't really great early game, but when hard content comes out, you can then tank more and aggro while also stop annoying mechanics from happening, so think about that for a bit before you decide to dive into this role. So finally, we are at the last section, which is what if I already have Nemesis? So you can already see the best pairings would probably be Samir for DPS and activating the Volt Resonance, or Coco if you're planning to do a healer role, or PvP with Nemesis. For your third slot, just start at the very beginning of the flowchart and go from there. Alright, so that should be the end of my flowchart. Some closing thoughts I should mention is that in the end, it shouldn't matter too much if you're going long term with this game. Most of the standard SSRs, if not all of them, will fall out of meta and get replaced eventually by stronger SSRs. Also, if you're a free to play or even a low spender, I will try to obtain all of the purple and gold nucleus on the map you can currently get before opening the SSR selection box. See what you can get by exhausting most of the one-time resources from exploration and achievements, and then use the SSR selection box on an SSR you are lacking or need a dupe on. Just get something that will help you progress during the coming months and save dupe tokens for stronger SSRs that will come in standard in the future. Also save black crystals and red nucleus on the element team you want to invest in. This was L4PQ. Like and sub if you want to, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.